14 rounds, 50 seconds work, 10 seconds rest. We're gonna do some traveling here because I have the space. Crawling. You guys get to look at my butt first. 10 seconds of a baby crawl. So opposite hand, opposite foot moves. So I put that knee down. I try and load on that leg. So I'm very light on my hands. And as I do this, I'm getting a nice side bend. So I'm working the hips, working the shoulder joints, working the core as I do this, and load each side. So very light. I turned that on, I did. So very light on my hands so I can kind of pick up here. So I put pressure into this leg. And as I go to the other leg, my head follows the loading leg here as I crawl. Keeping a nice arch in my back as I do this. So you can see here, I'm not here. A nice arch. Now we're gonna do bear crawl. That was a baby crawl. This is more the bear crawl. So we're gonna pick our knees up off the floor as we do this. So again, same movement. Gonna find load in the pad of the foot as I do this, up into the glute. And again, the head, a nice side bend in my back. The head goes over to the loading leg here. The tricky part with this one is making sure you're not pinching those hip flexors in the front. Like, just like our rockers and stuff, you want to need to adjust your pelvic tilt to make sure you're not pinching those hips. So the trick is really finding the muscle back here to pull that leg forward and not using the hip flexor to bring that leg up. It's a tough one to learn, but we eventually do get there. So a little bit more pressure on my hand while I do that one. It's because I don't have as much balance. Okay, next is a spinner walk. So over here, we're gonna spin, drag the other foot through, load up each leg as I do this. So as I take my step, I load up into that glute and take my next step forward so I can take the non-loading leg off the floor or drag it. Again, I'm floating my head over to the loading leg as I do this. Here, here. Keeping my hips behind my rib cage as I do this. Finding pressure, loading up to the pad of the foot and into the glute, not heel striking. It's a no-no. So load, load. So my spine, my body rotates over to that loading leg when I do that. So same thing, we're just gonna take that non-loading leg off a little bit. We're gonna pick it up. Again, using the muscle that's back here, instead of trying to use our hip flexor as we do this. It's a little bit more advanced to really know what muscles you're using as you do this. And again, balance is tricky sometimes, trying to focus. So from the front here, here, step. So you lift, step. So I'm lifting from here, back here, not my hip flexor. And again, body flows over to that loading leg. All right. Water break. Do some walking lunges. So here, you stay nice and low. Making sure I load up on the pad of the foot into the glute as I do this. You'll be able to tell if you're using more glute or the front side of your body. Sorry, if you're using the front side of your body more than the back side, because your hip flexors and your quads will engage more on this if you're too much in your front chain. Or you want to be in that back chain. You want to get that hip back, loading that glute back there. The front side's going to work, but it shouldn't be your dominant muscle group. So as I come down, I load over to this leg and push the hip back. So loading here, opening up, body funnels over to that loading leg. Here comes the fun one. We're gonna see if this works. Okay, so same walking lunge. So I'm gonna step, and as I come down, I'm gonna bicep curl into this. A little more coordination with that. But it's an idea I had while I was trying to sleep last night. Again, going slow with this is really helpful, especially when you're adding weight. So I'll do from the front here. So curl, and I step up, and I curl the other side. Whew. Loading up those glutes each step. Notice I'm not pressurizing through my heel. Probably hard to see in the video, but every time I take that step and I load, my heel rotates in to open up my hip and my knee and my hip. Whoops. So I'm gonna do a little bit of a drop in here. So we're gonna push our hip back. So again, pushing through the pad of the foot, getting the hip back to do this. Using those weights burn me up. So, again, pushing out. We're not exaggerating the knee out. We're not twisting our hips. It's opening it up, pushing it back, keeping space in that hip flexor. We don't want to be pinching that hip flexor. I like putting my hand, one on my glute, one on the hip flexor to make sure that, one, I'm loading the glute, and two, I'm not so tight in that hip flexor. If you're tight in there, just adjust what's happening in that. I can't think of the word. Okay, so we're gonna go just that low lunge here. Let's go here, and we're gonna stay up as we do this here. Sorry, stay a little bit lower as we do this, just to really keep that glute engaged as we do this. So light on the heel, a little bit of pressure if you need to in the heel to keep your balance, but don't push down and keep your toes up. We want to load through the pad of the foot into that glute and open. Hopefully that vertex doesn't cause too much noise while I do this. All right, oh, I'm supposed to stay down. Whew. All right, here we go. Do the same lunge here, so we can get into our lunge. We can come up, down, up. So same that we did walking. We're just gonna do it with the weight and get a little bicep work in the process. A little more challenging for me to keep my heel off the ground. It's there, it's just resting though, not pushing through it. So hip goes back. Ooh, balance. My hamstring and my glutes are working. Bicep just a little bit. All right, you're gonna do that sequence on the right side. Nope, we're not. I have one more I'm gonna do. So we're gonna add a bit of a shoulder press to that. So you can come down, come up. We'll just push through here. A little bit of coordination thing. So kind of a row into bicep and then shoulder press and a bit of a step forward. Mostly just loading up that left side here and just stepping briefly on the right. But most of my pressure stays on the left leg. So from the side, hip back into that lunge, kind of row up into the bicep curl, and then step through with that shoulder press. So you can stay lower here, get into here, and do a big press if you want. That works too. Okay, water break, and then we're gonna do those drop-ins on the other side. Right side. I always start with my left because my left I feel is like my good side. And I dread doing the right side because it always takes a while to figure out where my hip needs to be. Like my tilt of my pelvic tilt. Because sometimes I have to really find it here before I can get into that drop in. So it takes me a little bit to make sure I'm really engaging in those glutes and I'm not over activating my hip flexor. So just pushing back, staying off that heel. If you need support to do this, use support. I've been working on the single leg loading for a while, so support is not something I do all the time. Okay, low lunge without any weight. So we're gonna be just low, load. Stay as low as you want. I know eventually I start to climb up on that up part. I like to stay low, but this side, it's really challenging to make sure my hip flexor is not over activated here. I definitely am feeling my glutes and my hamstrings all down here, a little bit up here. I can feel it working. It's pretty solid back there. You can tell when I do these back lunges, I'm lunging off to that loading leg. I'm not here and doing like wide stance. I'm funneling into that side. Okay, bicep curl lunge. Find your drop in here. There you go, lunge and bicep curl. Lunge, bicep curl. I have to focus a little more to make sure I actually get into a good lunge, because sometimes this hip doesn't like to go backwards back as much as I like it to, and it likes to, my knee likes to come forward. So I have to focus. Back and up. Back and up. Ooh, my calf is lighting up on this side. Down. All right. Now we have to do that shoulder press part. Okay. All right. Shoulder press. Step through, down, lunge, bicep curl, shoulder press. Lunge to bicep curl and step through with the shoulder press. Oops, balance. Lunge, shoulder press. And there's the neighbor starting up the truck. Not sure if you can hear that. Lunge, shoulder press. Whew. Lunge, shoulder press. First, you can try and make this more fluid by not putting that foot down. Wow, and that was 14 minutes. Don't forget to stretch it out after this. Best stretch, 1, forward fold, so internally rotate your thighs as you come down. Hips go back, so internally rotate just a little bit, those femurs in the hip socket. Hips go back, and then reach down as far as you can without getting too much rounding in your lower back. We want to keep this part nice and flat here. You have a little bit on the upper back, but the lower back, you want to keep length here, so that's why you want to keep it nice and flat and not rounded. So we don't want to be rounding here. To try and touch, hips back, internally rotate the thighs, the femurs, and then reach down as far as you can. Also making sure you're zipping everything up in the front here to gain a little bit more space to be able to reach the ground. Another good stretch after all that is getting into a nice pigeon. So you notice when I go into a pigeon, you're gonna load up the one side a little bit and then bring that foot out, kick it out just a little bit to the other side. And then the other leg kind of comes up and the knees face the same direction. And then you can stretch into your pigeon. With your knees kind of facing the same way, my back foot, show you from behind. So I get into that side, kick it in, bring this knee up and over, and then back. And you notice my back foot here, toes in, heel is away. It's a pattern we want to always mimic while we do that. And then get as deep or as high up as you need to feel that stretch. You can be down here, or you can be up. And just do that on both sides. It's always nice to get into a resting squat if you can get into one. As good as you can. Heels, if they have to be up for now, they have to be up. But always make sure when you're down in that resting squat, do what's comfortable. It's kind of a hip width, but we want to make sure those feet are generally pointing straight. We don't want them out like this to get into that. That just causes too much strain on the body. It's not a natural pattern for the body, although a lot of people like to do it that way, but usually feet straight. I usually have my heels kicking out a little bit so that my sit bones can rest into my heels, just as they rest. My sit bones rest into my heels in the seiza here. Same with the resting squat. And be here. Same position. Have a good Friday, peeps.